February 13th, 2020. Joe here at Simple Life Show. I appreciate everybody for joining me today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, do all the good social media stuff to keep the rational voices out in front where they belong. So there is no love in Virginia, even though tomorrow is Valentine's Day. The worst has happened. So the House, as expected, have passed the draconian assault weapons ban. And there's a lot of gun shop owners that are fearing the repercussions of this. And it's no surprise because I had a chance to actually read some of this bill that they put forward. Now, this bill was changed a little bit. So this is House Bill 961. I didn't read all of it because it's extremely long. And it says here, right at the beginning, it says a bill to amend and reenact 16-1, and it has a whole bunch of other bills and ordinances and so forth of Code of Virginia, and to amend the Code of Virginia by adding sections numbered 18.2308-.9 through 18.2308.13 relating to prohibiting the sale, transport of assault firearms, certain firearms magazines, trigger activators, and silencers, penalties, etc. So I went and looked at some of these bills, at these reenactments, and we'll just kind of go through each one of them in summary. So the first one is delinquent children, loss of driving privileges for alcohol, firearm, and drug offenses. This goes all the way to 13 years of age. They can lose their future driving privileges if they're caught with any of these types of weapons or just a firearm in general. Now, I'm pretty sure this isn't a lifelong ban. I think it starts at 1 year and it goes to 2 years and so forth and so on. I guess with harsher penalties, with more when there's more subsequent offenses. So this is just more draconian type stuff going on. The second one is carrying loaded firearms in public areas prohibited, penalties, and so forth. So you can't even, not only can you not have certain firearms anymore, because it's not just assault firearms. It's not just assault weapons, right? Behold, the AR-15s, AK-47s, and it's pretty much anything with a clip that can hold 12 or more rounds. There's a lot of firearms. There's a lot of handguns out there that hold more than 12. So that will be illegal now, along with all AR-15s, AK-47s, and so forth. Now, what was really kind of interesting, I'll go back to this House Bill 961. There's a lot of things that are scratched out here. And if you can see here, this is scratched out. It says, for purposes of this section, assault firearm means any semi-automatic center-fire rifle or pistol that expels single or multiple projectiles by action or of an explosion of a combustible material and is equipped with, at the time of offense, with a magazine which will hold more than 20 rounds of ammunition, blah, 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 blah. All right, so this kind of stuff was marked out multiple times throughout this this bill here. And it doesn't actually define what an assault rifle is or an assault weapon is until towards the bottom of this whole thing. So for purposes of this section, assault firearm means a semi-automatic centerfire rifle that expels single or multiple projectiles by action of an explosion of a combustible material with a fixed magazine capacity in excess of 12 rounds. So that pretty much eliminates a lot of rifles, not just AR-15s and AK-47, but anyone that is able to have a magazine capacity of 12 rounds, in excess of 12 rounds. And then it goes further. Look at this definition of assault firearm. It goes from this, right? And then they have redefined it to include all of that. So it goes further by saying a semi-automatic center fire rifle that expels single multiple projectiles, explosion, blah, blah, blah. It's the ability to accept a detachable magazine and has one of the following characteristics. One of them, holding a telescoping scope, pistol grip that protrudes conspicuously beneath the action of the rifle, a second-hand grip, or a protruding grip that can be held by the non-trigger hand. A grenade launcher, a flare launcher, a silencer, a flash suppressor, muzzle brake, a muzzle compensator, a threaded barrel capable of accepting a silencer, a flash suppressor, muzzle brake or muzzle compensator, any characteristic of any kind as enumerated in clauses 1 through 10. So they are just trying to go after literally everything that you can possibly put on a gun. And this is not just centerfire rifles. This is actual, pistols as well. A semi-automatic centerfire pistol that expels single multiple projectiles by action of explosion with a fixed magazine capacity of in excess of 12 rounds. I think my guns can take 13, so I guess they're illegal now. So this also goes into everything that could be described as an assault pistol, semi-automatic centerfire pistol that expels single or multiplier projectiles. We're not going to go over that again. Folding, telescoping scope, second-hand grip, protruding grip, pretty much the same thing as the rifle, but also it includes a manufacturer weight of 50 ounces or more when the pistol is unloaded. So it has a weight description on it as well. It can't be over 50 ounces when it's unloaded. A threaded barrel capable of accepting a silencer, a flash suppressor, a barrel extender, and or a forward hand grip, or any characteristic of like kind as enumerated in clauses 1 through 6. Also includes shotguns, a shotgun revolving cylinder that expels single or multiple projectiles by action of an explosion, or a semi-automatic shotgun that expels single or multiple projectiles. That has a telescoping stock, a pistol grip, conspicuously beneath the action of the shotgun, ability to accept detachable magazine, a fixed magazine capacity of more than 7 rounds, or any characteristic or like kind enumerated in clauses 1 through 4. Okay, so it also includes assault firearm, includes any part or combination of parts designed or intended to convert, modify, or otherwise alter the firearm in an assault firearm, or any combination of parts that may be readily assembled into an assault firearm. So this includes all of the kits. They are outlawing the kits as well. So those are parts that can be assembled into an assault firearm. So they're going after the companies that you can actually assemble your own pistol. You can assemble your own centerfire rifle, or you can pretty much anything. Shotgun, doesn't really matter. They're going after those companies as well. And if you really go through all this kind of stuff, this is really just putting anyone that is selling or transferring these weapons in multiple different types of handcuffs. There's so many different things here. 18.2, carrying a loaded firearm in public areas prohibited. So you can't carry your firearm anywhere now. It can't even be loaded. So you might as well just not even have a gun. Possession or transport of certain firearms by certain persons. Let me see. Prohibiting the selling of firearms to certain persons. This is all about background checks and so forth. And all of the procedures that go along with this. Criminal history record, information check required for the transfer of certain firearms. There's something in here that was any persons purchasing from a dealer a firearm, as herein defined, shall consent in writing on a form to be provided to the state Department of State Police to have a dealer obtain criminal history record. So everything has to be in writing now. You can't just call it in. It's not electronic. It's all in writing now. And that's just to slow the process down. The area now, I'm going to be moving to Virginia in the next few months, and the area that I'm moving to, which is in Tazewell County, is very small. It's very rural, and there's not a lot of cops around there. So Tazewell County, let me see. I had an article here from Tazewell. It looks like now this happened back in December last couple months ago when all of this was going down. So there was, well, come on. For some reason, it's not allowing me to see. Okay, so we'll just read a little bit here. So they passed a sanctuary ordinance like a lot of counties did in Virginia. He said the ordinance is approved by the board to allow the county to challenge any resolution in state or federal court. The resolution is truly designed to allow us to hire lawyers to see that laws infringing on the Second Amendment never last any longer than it takes in court to remove them. Both resolutions call for the elimination of funding to any enforcement of laws that infringe upon the rights of law-abiding citizens to keep and bear arms. Stacy and other board members said the concern that state leaders might cut off funding to the county or remove elected officials who refuse to enforce state law prompted them to pass the militia ordinance. Our position is that this Article 1, Section 13 of the Constitution of Virginia reserves a right to order militia to the localities. Young said, therefore, counties, not the state, determine what types of arms may be carried in their territory and by whom. So we are ordering the militia to take, making sure everyone can own a weapon. So there are some caveats to this. In order to be included in this, you would have to go through CCW training. Yeah, big deal. No big deal, right? So they are trying to make sure that everyone is able to have their guns. The simple fact of the matter is that in a lot of these rural areas in Virginia, you really can't get a lot of police response. Sometimes it can take more than an hour for a cop to get out there. By then, if there's some issue, if there's some problem, it's already a done deal. It's history at that point. So in order to make sure that you're safe and your family's safe, or whoever that's living with you, or if it's just yourself, you have to make sure that you're armed, and going through all of these things is causing a lot of problems, and it will cause a lot of problems. But what's really interesting is that Virginia, I wasn't even aware of this, that they didn't have a parole function in their prison system. So whenever you were sentenced to something, that's just where you were. You didn't get early release. But now they're bringing that back. So they're going to be releasing hundreds, if not thousands, of prisoners for early release parole. And a lot of these include rapists, murderers, so forth. And while they're doing that, they're making sure that the law-abiding citizens of Virginia are not armed. We know retention rates are a thing, and they're a thing for a reason. And it's not that I don't believe that people should get parole after serving a certain amount of time, but it's really kind of funny that they're doing this at the same time they're trying to take everyone's Second Amendment rights away. And so I'm going to be moving into the middle of all this. Thanks, of course, I made sure that I picked an area that was a sanctuary county. And you can best believe I will be holding on to every single weapon that I have. It looks like the area that I'm actually in, it looks like it's a pretty good area. Most people look like they take care of each other. They look out for each other, and that's always a good thing. That's one of the biggest things that I look for in any kind of area that I want to live in. So one of the things that I really saw about this was just the sheer amount of all of the types of restrictions and all of the arduous types of procedures that not gun manufacturers, but gun sellers have to go through in order to sell a gun or transfer a gun for a private citizen to another. So there's just so many things that you have to almost be a lawyer to go through it all. And that is the point that I'm trying to get across, that yes, this is passed the House. It will pass the Senate. And they said they're going to give everyone a year to give up their weapons. And January 2021 is when, if you don't give up your weapons, then yeah, you're going to prison. And I don't know whether they're going to be doing a roundup or something like that. I'm not exactly sure how that would even go. But yeah, a lot of people just really are not very happy about this kind of stuff. And the sanctuary cities and the sanctuary counties are ensuring, at least promising to the citizens, that they will not be doing this. I hope that they keep up their end of that deal. So if you're interested here, I'll put a link in the description so you can actually read this entire thing. It's very long. I skimmed over, read some parts, skimmed over the rest. I mean, it's very long. It's very draconian. It's very anti-freedom, anti-constitution. But that's what's happening in Virginia right now. Like I said, Virginia is the proving ground for a lot of these ultra-liberal policies that are going through. And it seems strange that I'm moving to Virginia, but I'm doing that for a lot of different reasons. I'm doing that because the property's cheap out there, but I'm also doing that because I simply believe that I need to be in the middle of all this stuff when it's happening, and a lot of this stuff is happening in Virginia right now, but it's going to be spreading everywhere anyway. And I'm also doing this because I really want to get out of urban society. Urban society is not going to be the place that you want to be when everything collapses, and it will collapse over the next year or two. But like I said, people have been saying that for a long time, and it's really easy to dismiss that. But, it's always when you're not looking. It's always when you have been lulled back to sleep when the carpet gets pulled out from underneath you. So that's not the only news I want to talk about today. Remember that movie, The Hunt? Remember that one where they have a whole bunch of so-called hillbillies or Trump supporters from Alabama, and they are being hunted by the elite. Of course, this isn't really anything new. This isn't a new story. It's everything is kind of a branch off from The Most Dangerous Game, which was originally a book, and it was later a movie, and it had different kind of spin-offs and remakes and reboots and so forth. But it's back on now that Trump has subverted impeachment, has been acquitted. So we are seeing a lot of this stuff come back into the forefront. And I don't think it has anything to do with that it's just enough time has passed. I think they're deciding to release this because, you know what? Screw Trump supporters, and screw the United States. We're just going to put this on about hunting Trump supporters and killing them and so forth. And it all stems from this impeachment fiasco not working out in the favor of the Democrats, not working out in the favor of Pelosi and Schumer, two of which need to be removed from office because they are traitors to this country. And they have essentially screwed the Democratic National Committee and, of course, the candidates for a very, very long time. So that is something to look forward to watching this. I will be watching this because I do want to see all of the propaganda in there. I'm sure that they probably had inserted more propaganda over the last few months, just to make sure it stinks. Now, of course, we still have the Department of Justice fiasco going on right now with William Barr and I think what was her name? Jamie Liu, I think it is. And she was, I guess, the previous Department of Justice for DC, and she was taking off. Of course, there was a lot of questions about the jury selection in Roger Stone's trial. Of course, that Trump got involved, and since Trump got involved and he started saying stuff, and William Barr started looking into it, now Roger Stone has got a much less sentence. They were trying to give him like decades. He was, I think they were going after at least a decade for Roger Stone for some political crimes, right? I've seen rapists and murderers get less time, and that is really sick. I don't know what's worse, murderers and rapists getting less time or him getting more time. I'm not exactly sure. I think they're both equally bad. But that just goes to prove that the jury selection for Roger Stone, and in fact, probably a lot of the other people that went down over the last year or two, were probably in the same boat. They probably had a lot of anti-Trump, social justice warrior, extreme leftist type of personalities on these juries, and they were just seething and foaming at the mouth to put some of these people in prison. And that's really sad. I mean, I know that there's a lot of angst on the right trying to clear out the swamp, but you have to understand that those people on the right, as crazy as they might seem, they want to go after everyone, regardless of political affiliation. And I'm in the same boat. I think that we should go after everyone who is corrupt. Now, should they be put in prison for the rest of their lives? It really just depends on what they've done. I think they should be taken out of power, obviously, at a bare minimum, and they should be made an example out of. Change is really hard, Change is really hard, especially when you have a constant shakeup. And this is just another types of thing. Everyone wants to call Trump a dictator because of all this stuff. He's getting too far involved in the judicial system. And you know what? The president has the power to pardon people as well, just as much as the power to fire people. It is his. It's his right to do that. It's he's not obligated to do it, but he does have that option if he so chooses. But of course, a lot of the people on the left are saying that he's using dictatorial type of powers. He just doesn't care anymore. He's just throwing everything to the wind. And I just have trouble believing that, because he's been saying that he's going to be doing this for a long time. This isn't anything out of the whim. And look at the way he's been treated over the last 3 years. I mean, there's been a lot of lies that have been propagated in the media. They have been very fair to him. They have been, in fact, cultivating a culture war and the zombie-like mentality of the people that watch mainstream media 24 hours a day, and they kind of suck this up and they don't know how to filter it. And the days of just getting on Facebook or social media and becoming a keyboard junkie and expert on everything those days are nearing an end. People are taking it to the streets. People are taking the law and so forth into their own hands, just as much as people on the right and people who follow QAnon. Recently that the guy that was a QAnon supporter, he killed someone, and his lawyers were basically trying to say that he was trying to do Trump a favor. He was trying to do Trump a solid or something like that, something along those lines. But yeah, I mean, it's on the left, it's on the right. I know the QAnon people out there, I consider them kind of loony. I don't follow QAnon, so I can't really say much, but I have seen some of the earlier stuff, and I have talked to some of these people who are rabid QAnon supporters. In a lot of ways, they are just as dangerous. A lot of these people take this stuff very, very seriously. And as well, some of the things should be taken very seriously. But when we enter the realm of fantasy and stuff like that, then that's when everything can become very, very dangerous. Moving on. So there was a survey, and I'm kind of be jumping all over the place, and I'm sorry about that, but there was a survey that just came out, and it was from this survey company. It was called, let me see. Can't remember. It doesn't say. I actually had it pulled up. Okay, Slate Star Codex. Let me see. It's carried out by Slate Star Codex. The online survey collected a wealth of data from respondents about their education, demographic, lifestyle, and political views. So basically what it's come up with, this chart here that I'm showing, is that this is a self-position on the left and right spectrum. So the far left, ultra-liberal, far right, ultra-conservative. Most people are going to be somewhere in the center. But we also see here that 42.5% recognize themselves as far left of the respondents. Let me see. And well, actually, that's not what this is. Let me explain. This is really the proportion of respondents to the survey who say they have been formally diagnosed with either depression, borderline personality disorder, bipolar disorder, or schizophrenia by self-position on the left-right spectrum. So 19.4 of the ultra-right, we would call them like, your Nazis and the alt-right and stuff like that. It's really hard to define what the alt-right is anymore, just as much as hard to define what the alt-left is. But 19.4 have identified with at least one or more of these depression, personality disorder, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, etc. But 42.5% of the ultra-left Marxist communist, so almost half of the people that identify with that political ideology. So 8,000 people. It's a good type of sample here. They are 50% of the ultra left, and you can actually say, I mean, even the percentage that are not so ultra left but almost there, that would actually add up to like around almost 75%, almost 3/4. In relation to whatever that's like 40%, 42, 43% versus 75%. So, I mean, it's not like this is totally scientific, but it does give you a window into the mentality of people who embrace these Marxist and communist ideologies about sharing the wealth and stuff like that. Everyone should be equally equal no matter what. Everyone should have equal outcome. It's kind of very it's I would consider it a mental disease when you can't actually see reality for what it is. You're kind of stuck in this utopian type of wishful thinking that everyone should be equal and everyone should have equal outcome. But as we have discussed before, I mean, if that was really the case, then everyone would be equally poor, equally miserable, and stuff like that. Unfortunately, that's just the world we live in. And instead of forwarding these ideas, we should be forwarding less restriction on new businesses. We should be completely rejecting new taxes, because that does stifle growth, that does stifle productivity, that does stifle new businesses from actually entering the markets in this country when we have these high tax brackets. And people that actually believe this is going to work in this country are completely delusional. But they're also completely delusional if they think that Bernie Sanders will actually be able to get any of this stuff passed. He has to get it through 2 houses. And I guess there is a slight chance that we could have a Bernie Sanders presidency and he could get both houses. And if that's the case, that's the ultimate bad news for everybody, because then a lot of these things will pass. And we'll have to wait for the next presidency to get rid of them. But there's no telling what kind of damage will be done in the meantime. So this is another chart here. It says proportion of respondents to the survey who said they have been formally diagnosed with depression, borderline personality, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia. Marxists, we have alt-right, conservative, liberal, libertarian, Marxist, and also some of these other ones as well. But the main one, of course, is the Marxist. That's the one that accounts for almost 40% of the respondents. Libertarian and conservative are actually, conservative would probably be the least, and then alt-right, strangely enough, would be coming in at second place. Third place would be libertarian. Liberal would be right up there as well. Social demorat. I can't even read that, unfortunately. This the resolution on this graph really isn't that great, but you get the idea. And like I said, it's not very scientific, but it does kind of get to the heart of the problem. This was all the questions from the survey. I will post that in the link in the description if you kind of want to look at where they got these numbers. I'll post that, and you can actually look at all of the respondents percentage-wise and so forth, because it's not just random numbers. Okay, so moving on. This was an interesting story. This happened actually earlier last year. I didn't even know it. Virgin Atlantic, they're retiring logos, which is another a social justice warrior type of thing that's going on with yet another business. So if we remember the actual logo here, well, actually, we don't have a picture of the actual logo because God forbid them actually putting on there. But the point is that it was a white woman. I think she was a redhead or something like that. Similar design, but now we have a gay man here with the rainbow bottoms, right? Because of course we have to have rainbow bottoms. I don't understand that. And then we have a black man, an Asian woman. And this is looks like this was what it used to look like, or maybe they actually have that as one. But from what I've read, there was only 4. There was a black woman, there was a black man, there was an Asian woman, and there was a gay white guy. And that was it. There was only 4 logos. They just completely took the white woman out of there. And I think this is just another example of the white guilt and the white privilege type of propaganda that has been spread for the last 30 years through academia. And what I say is that where did all of this white privilege talk come from? Well, it came from this paper from Peggy McIntosh, and this was back in 1988. Peggy McIntosh was and still is. I believe she's 85, 86, pretty old. She's still a professor, I guess. She has some sort of professorship, and she does these kind of feminist race studies and stuff like that. Just a lifelong academic, doesn't really know too much about the world. But back in 1988, she wrote this, and this is what started it all off. She wrote 46 examples of how she felt like she had white privilege, and she felt bad about that. So this is directly from the paper itself. After frustration with men. Now, the paper itself is entitled, if you didn't read it, it's White Privilege and Male Privilege, a personal account of coming to see correspondence through work in women's studies. All right, so after frustration with men who would not recognize male privilege, I decided to try to work on myself, at least by identifying some of the daily effects of white privilege in my life. It is crude work at this stage, but I will give here a list of special circumstances and conditions I experienced that I did not earn, but that I have been made to feel are mine by birth, by the citizenship, and by virtue of being conscientious, law-abiding, normal person of goodwill. We will see that that's completely bullshit, but I'll continue. I have chosen those conditions that I think in my case attach somewhat to my skin color privilege than to class, religion, ethnic status, or geographical location. Notice she doesn't say anything about economic privilege. We'll get into that in a second. Through these other privileges, factors are intertwined as far as I can see. My Afro-American coworkers, friends, and acquaintances with whom I come into daily or frequent contact in this particular time, place, and line of work cannot count on most of these conditions. Now, I'm not going to read all these. I'll post a link in the description, but I'm going to read a few. First one is, I can, if I wish, arrange to be in the company of people of my race most of the time. I don't even know what that means. You mean that you can call up some of your friends and go meet at a coffee shop and black people can't? I don't know how that's not racist on its own. Number 5, I can go shopping alone most of the time, fairly well assured that I will not be followed or harassed by store detectives. So, yeah, you were, I guess, in your, 60s, 50s or 60s, late 50s, 60s when you wrote this. Rich white woman going through a store. Yeah, I'm assuming that if you are from an affluent, either affluent neighborhood or affluent family, very rich, most people aren't going to assume that you're going to steal a 30-cent pack of gum. So they're not going to be following you around. Number 10, I can be fairly sure of having my voice heard in a group in which I am the only member of my race. I don't know where this is really coming from. If you have some good ideas, you can be fairly sure people will find them interesting and they'll listen to you. But if you start popping off of the mouth with nonsense, I think most rational people will be like, well, that's nonsense. I don't care what race you are. 15, I did not have to educate our children to be aware of systemic racism for their own daily physical protection. Why would someone she is assuming that if you're black, that you have to educate your children on systemic racism for their protection. How does that work? I'm not exactly sure how educating someone on and trying to convince them that they are a victim and that everyone is out to get them is for their own protection. Now, I understand there's a lot of poor areas, okay, and they have a lot of black people in them. But I'm also from the South, and I've lived in a lot of poor white neighborhoods too. I lived in a lot of meth villages as well, where there was a lot of violence, there was a lot of shooting, there was a lot of drug wars going on. It's just the same as some of the worse off black neighborhoods. But we don't really hear about those. If a black couple has a baby and they're rich and they're a lawyer and they live in an affluent neighborhood and they have a 2-story mansion or whatever, and you have people that live in Methville and they have a baby, who's more affluent, who has more privilege? I don't think that any of the so-called privileges here, I don't think that when that little meth baby grows up, I don't think he's thinking, well, I can call my friends up and we can get together and we're all white, therefore I have privilege and I'm better off. I don't think that's really going through their head, and I don't think that's a real thing. Number Number 17, I can talk with my mouth full and not have people put this down to my color. Not exactly sure what that means. It doesn't matter what color you are. If you're talking with your mouth full of food, that's disgusting. I don't care what color you are. That's ridiculous. Let me see. 25. If a traffic cop pulls me over, or if the IRS audits my tax return, I can be sure I haven't been singled out because of my race. Well, tell that to like Willie Nelson or something like that. Tell that to some of the other prominent white people who have been audited by the IRS, and or either that or they're in prison for that. Tell that to I can't even really think of any off my. I'm sure there's plenty of them. I'm just not really thinking about the IRS and taxes, but there's plenty of white people that are going through that. That've gone through that. I don't really think the IRS singles anyone out for race. I think it really is. I think it's really just about breaking the law and not conforming to the tax code. I'm not going to get involved in a tax code because I think all taxes are just theft, but that goes beyond this the scope of this conversation. What was really interesting here, you can read all these, but 46, we've actually heard this one. I can choose blemish color or bandages in flesh color and have them more or less match my skin. I understand that having Band-Aids that are tan in color might be off-putting. What about the gingers out there? It's not going to go along too well with their skin tone either. So maybe they should be complaining as well. I mean, how ridiculous do we have to be in this country before we can just stop this madness? I'll put a link in the description. You really need to read this because this will show you where all this came from. And what's really interesting is this Peggy McIntosh. Okay, she came from an affluent family. Her father worked in engineering. A lot of the stuff that he invented and had a part in are still being used today, especially with satellites and so forth and so on. But they made a lot of money. She is a woman of affluence, a woman of a lot of rich family, and she really didn't have to worry about anything. In fact, there is no record of Peggy McIntosh ever doing any civil rights, anything in the civil rights movement. She has not done any charity work. She has not done anything in the civil rights movement or any kind of anything for any minorities. But she is here to let everyone know, at least back in 1988, about white privilege and how it's white people should be upset that they're white. And this is what's been prevailing in this country through academia for the last 30 years. You at least need to know where it comes from, so you at least know the ridiculousness of where all this is coming from. You need to judge people based on the content of the character, not the color of their skin. That's all you need to know. That is it. It's pretty simple. And this identity politics is destroying this country, and Peggy McIntosh is one of the leading culprits of it. So here was something that was really interesting along with white privilege here. This came out a couple days ago. So there's white liberals apologize for slavery by kissing boots of Black Power members. So these are the Black Hebrewites, the Black Hebrew Israelites. And if you don't know who they are, look them up. They're a far left fringe group that has a lot of weird beliefs about the Hebrew people and the God's chosen people and so forth. I'm not going to have a discussion about it, but they played a huge part in the Covington kids getting really negative press because they were the originally ones out there screaming at the kids, calling them names and so forth. And the kids didn't say anything. Of course, they were laughing. They were just too busy laughing at them. And of course, when the Indian man comes up, the poor World War II Indian man comes up and starts chanting in his face, getting up in their face, and they don't say anything. We all know that story. But this isn't the first time this has actually happened. But this has been happening for a while now with this whole boot kissing thing.
Here it is, right here. There you go. This is the white man. Get these white women and get these white people a hand, man. Keep on coming.
You guys are awesome.
Keep on coming. Keep on coming, Mr. White Man. Keep on going.
Okay, so apparently there wasn't a video. I'm sorry, there wasn't audio with that, but you can see, kind of here where, we have a couple white people that are kissing the boots of these black Hebrew Israelites. So sorry I didn't have that. There was something else that was kind of interesting here. This is from the NASP, which is the National Association of School Psychologists. So we know they have their hands in pretty much everything, right? So they are trying to, they have been doing this, and it's not that like they're it's not like they're trying to do it. They've been involved in this the entire time with pushing this white guilt, pushing this race, and pushing the white privilege for middle school and high school students. There was actually a story, actual multiple stories for middle school students who were forced to line up in order of their white privilege. Like, how can they even discern that? But I guess it was a class project, right? So we could further solidify and concrete in the minds of our young kids that they should be, they should be the bootlickers, right? They should be kissing the feet of everyone else. They should feel bad that they are white. I mean, we really need to stop this. I mean, it's getting out of hand. It's getting stupid. And of course, if you talk about it like I am right now, then everyone wants to say, well, you're obviously a racist, right? You're obviously a racist because this is something that is not pure and natural for little kids to be doing, or anyone for that matter to be doing. This is something that's completely normal, and we have normalized this type of behavior in our middle and high school students, and even to elementary as well. Of course, in elementary school, we're just we're not only doing the white privilege, but we're doing the transsexual type of story hour, and the drag queen, and how to perform the best oral sex, and all these types of positions, because elementary school students really need to be learning this kind of stuff. They really need to be learning about this, and also how to feel bad for being a certain color and a certain race. So we're going to have a new generation that's going to come up that's going to feel so bad for yourself, and we're going to see that 40 to 75% go all the way to 100%. They're all going to have mental disorders. They're all going to be crazy, and those are the people are just going to be like the waste of human flesh that was behind the wheel of that van that tried to run all over those people in Florida. You don't think you don't think that he had some mental problems there? You don't think that he had a little bipolar going on? You don't think he had a little schizophrenia going on? He probably had a lot of it going on. He probably had a lot of people talking. He had a lot of voices in his head telling him what to do. And those voices in his head were not only the school psychologist here for, a lot of these people are very young. Of course, they're probably still in college, maybe. Or maybe they've already been they've already been brainwashed in middle and high school, and they're just tapping everything off in college, because we know that 75 to 80% of the professorships out there are going to liberal professors, the ones that are following the Marxist ideology. And it's no surprise that people are coming out of college, they don't believe in God anymore, because communists didn't believe in God. They didn't want the population to believe in anything other than the state. It's just like Hitler said, you got to get them when they're young. And this is what they're doing. So lesson objectives, right? Upon completion of the lesson, students should be able to define the concept of privilege, identify and express examples of privilege in their lives and the world in which they live. And there's directions for the instructors and so forth. What is privilege? Go look it up, right? Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines privilege as the following: a right or immunity granted as a particular benefit, advantage, or favor, special enjoyment of good or exemption from an evil or burden, a special opportunity to do something that makes you proud, an advantage that wealthy and powerful people have over other people in a society. So it's a power over people, right? So if I'm privileged, you can be privileged at all times in your life. So does this mean that black people can't be privileged in any way? That anyone of any minority can't be privileged? How racist is that? I mean, the whole concept of white privilege is racist. period. Because you are affirming that white people are better. It's an affirmation of that. Those people that are forwarding, the Democrats that are forwarding this white privilege are affirming that white people are better than black people. And they are trying to make sure that you're aware of that. And the more that you're aware of that, the more that you can absolve yourself and rise above all other white people by proclaiming your guilt. Well, how racist is that? I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, it's even worse. It's even worse because you are proclaiming yourself better than all of the other racists. You're so racist because you're better than all of the other racists. You're even more racist than them. Because now you absolved yourself. Now you feel good about yourself. Shouldn't you be feeling bad? Shouldn't you be feeling bad about all this stuff? But, who cares, right? This is just the type of world that we live in right now, that we are under this type of spell, this type of Hollywood type of spell. It all goes back to, Harry Potter and just putting spells on people. Hollywood. It's, the wands that are made of Hollywood that put spells over people. It keeps them drunk. It keeps them, preoccupied. And now it's being subverted into all of our entertainment as well. We want to make sure that all of our entertainment is as diverse as possible. It has to be diverse. It has to be. It's required. I mean, I know it's a touchy subject, but shouldn't we be forwarding actual talent? Now, if that actual talent turns out to be an exact replication of our diversity as a nation, then so be it. But I want to get the best ideas from the best people. I want to get the best entertainment from the best people. I don't care what their race is. It's all about talent. It's all about what you're actually giving towards society. It's what you're giving back to your fellow man or woman. I don't know what else to say about that. This is from the New Yorker. This was here recently, February 10th. Can slavery reenactment set us free? Underground railroad simulations have ignited controversy about whether they confront the country's darkest history or trivialize its gravest traumas. We do have Civil War reenactments all the time. Should we have slavery reenactments? I think that we should be, instead of doing slavery reenactments, I think we should have more Civil War reenactments. I think that people need to be more aware of how many people actually died in the name of setting black slaves free. I think we really need to do more of that instead of tearing down statues as well. But now this is just another example of keeping the race, the black versus white, or just white versus everyone dichotomy alive and well in this country. Because if we can't have that division, if that division is not there, and in my last video I was saying that we are not truly divided because we all want the same thing, but we are brainwashed into thinking that we are divided, but we truly are not. Now, we might have differences in ideology. The reasons why a lot of people have this communist or Marxist ideology, why people are romanticizing the Cold War era Soviet control over Russia and communist control, is simply because of this whole divisionary tactics that have been feeding into our academic system over the last 30 to 40 years. I told you it's going to take some time. After the Cold War ended, guess what? The communists infiltrated the academic space. That is where they started. So when they start there, they actually, it's easier to get in the minds of everyone, especially the young people, to convince them that, yes, you are a victim. Yes, capitalism is the enemy of the people. And you hear this over and over and over again. But we have to keep race and race relations in the forefront as a foundation of this division. We know this already. We see it every single day. In fact, there was, we saw the bootlicking and boot kissing and so forth, right? But there was also recently another black student that got up that was obviously brainwashed into thinking that, you know, she's a victim and stuff. But of course, she's in college, so she's obviously a victim, right? And she's of course, there's a multicultural center on this campus, and she's under the impression that it's just for minorities. It's just for you know, blacks and Hispanics and so forth. But white people should not be in there. This is her kind of doing her freak out.
Public service announcement. Excuse me. If y'all didn't know, this is the MSC, and frankly, there's just too many white people in here, and this is a space for people of color. So just be really cognizant of the space that you're taking up, because it does make some of us POCs uncomfortable when we see too many white people in here. It's only been open for 4 days, and frankly, there's the whole university for a lot of y'all to be at, and there's very few spaces for us. So keep that in mind. Thank you.
I hope you were able to hear that. I wasn't able to hear it on my end. I'm having some technical difficulties, but I hope you were able to hear that clip. If you were not, I am so sorry. I'm going to try to put a link in the description. But yeah, that was, I remember what she was saying, that she, of course, she made her little noises and, you know, gave her public service announcement about how to be a little bit more cognizant of your race while you're in a multicultural space, right? So we should be cognizant of that at all times. This is what they're being taught in their classes, that they should just know at all times about how guilty they, especially if you're white. That's strike number one. Pete Buttigieg, of course, some people are calling him the new Obama or the white Obama, or whatever you want to call him. Now, The Guardian is calling him white Mr. White Privilege. It says Pete Buttigieg is the embodiment of white privilege, and black voters know it. Of course, we are going into another primary with South Carolina and further Nevada and Ohio, and there is a decent amount of black population in these areas. So those in our establishment really want Joe Biden to do well, and they have, you know, kind of infiltrated this whole and kind of concocted this entire Pete Buttigieg is, you know, like another Wall Street bootlicker, and he is just an implant of Wall Street, and I have a problem believing that. I mean, if he was really such an insider, why wasn't he, you know, a mayor of a larger town? I don't know if that's really good logic or not, but yeah, it's, you know, the thing of the matter is, I'm not defending Pete Buttigieg, because he comes from the same cloth and the same type of philosophy as Bernie Sanders. In fact, Bernie Sanders is one of his, I guess you want to call childhood heroes. Maybe he's actually done a lot of essays and papers on Bernie Sanders as an admired character. And Bernie Sanders is a character. He's Looney Tunes, all right, and he has a lot of plans, and he has no idea how to pay for it. But this is just another example. They don't want Pete Buttigieg in there at all. So you really have to ask your question, why? Maybe it's just because they want Joe Biden in it, because Joe Biden will be a good thing for the stock market. He will be a good implant for the elite. He will be a good steward of the New World Order. Because those in the elite, they don't really care about race. They want to kill you either way. It doesn't matter what your color is. You're just a useless eater. We know this. We know that people like Bill Gates have been trying to formulate all kinds of different types of diseases and so forth to get rid of people, and all kind of inventive ways to euthanize the population. I think this coronavirus is just another way to do it. China and their president have been very vocal about how they should be getting rid of people. The overpopulation of China, they want to get rid of people. And there's been 60 to 70,000 new cases, but that's just what they report, right? We know what they report is absolute bull, because it's always higher than that. Moving on. So Warren actually, this is just another example of Warren kind of putting her foot in her mouth. There was a clip of her saying, I'll go ahead and just play the clip. It's only like a minute long. Maybe we'll hear it this time.
Strong following, and clearly we have a bunch of contests in the next 30 days. But are you optimistic that after Super Tuesday that there will be some kind of coalescing so that we don't end up in one of those protracted, bitter battles that go all the way to the convention? How are you feeling about that right now? You think that is a possibility?
Sure talked about that in my speech tonight, because I am concerned. But you know, Claire, I tell you, there are so many people who are in this fight for all the right reasons. You know me, did the speech, and then afterwards did a selfie line, and we were there for over an hour. And people are coming through, and they're saying thank you, and they're giving hugs and talking about what's important to them. Young woman came up by herself, and she said, I'm a broke college student with a lot of student loan debt. And she said, I checked and I have $6 in the bank. So I just gave $3 to keep you in this fight. That's what we got to do. We got to stay in this fight with people who are counting on us.
So I hope you're able to actually hear that. I'm going to have to work on my audio so I can actually hear it. But I did watch the video before I uploaded it. But yeah, Warren has kind of stuck her foot in her mouth. I mean, we're trying to help the college students and stuff, and she's taking $3 from now. I'm probably going to give her a pass on this, because it's not like she took $3 from her hand. The woman just told her that she gave her $3, and the fact that she was kind of bragging about it, I don't know. I'm going to give her a free pass on this one. It just, she's doing so poorly in the polls. It's just kind of pointless to kind of pile on, because we know that Elizabeth Warren's probably going to be out here pretty soon of this race. And I'm glad, because I consider her even more bonkers than Bernie Sanders, believe it or not. I think she's even further left than Bernie Sanders. I think that she is so upset that Hillary Clinton didn't win, and I think that she took the reins. She would actually pilot the bus off the cliff even faster, and even while we're going down the cliff, she'll probably still be flooring it. But yeah, that was Elizabeth Warren. That's all I got for you today, actually, in this video. I know I ran it a little bit long. I'm almost at an hour now. I'm a little bit long-winded, but I did have a lot to talk about, especially with this, a lot of the infiltration of the communist ideals that just continue to go on. Of course, the Virginia thing is very, very, very serious. So everyone needs to be taking a look at that. So if you made it this far, congratulations. I'm sorry, I'm going to make my videos a little bit shorter, but you know how I am sometimes. I'm long-winded, and I like to talk about certain things. So I'll see you in the next one. Have a great day. Bye.